Hello, 6th grade. Today we're going to move on and talk about Unit 3, Lesson 21. It is dependent and independent variables. So, you might have talked about this already in science, and it kind of goes hand in hand. A dependent variable depends on the independent variable. So, depending on what number we put for our independent variable, the answer or the dependent variable is going to change. So, let's move into it. So we have the problem. Tickets for the school musical are $8 per ticket. This table shows the cost, C, for a certain number of tickets, which is T. Complete the table and describe the relationship between the total cost and the tickets purchased. So the first question says, what are the two quantities in this situation? So if we look back up at our chart, or in our question, it talks about the two things that we need to know to be able to decide this situation are, one, the number of tickets, and the total cost. B, if you know the number of tickets, you can find the total cost. Which quantity depends on the other? Well, if we're looking at this, the total cost depends on the number of tickets. Because we don't know the cost unless we know the number of tickets. So C says, find the total cost for 3 tickets and 4 tickets. So we know that we have to have our number of tickets times the $8 it costs per ticket. And that is going to give us our total cost. So this is our equation. Now that we have our equation, then we are then going to take and plug in 3, and we're going to plug in 4 for our tickets. So 8 times 3 equals 24, and 8 times 4 equals 32. So D says, use words to explain the relationship between tickets and the total cost. So we would say 8 times, because we have to multiply 8 times the number of tickets, equals the total cost. And the last one says, explain how you found the total cost for 3 tickets and 4 tickets. So we just go back up here and tell what we did right here. Okay, so we multiplied $8 by 3 to get $24, and 4 times $8 to get $32. So let's find out more. In the problem on the previous page, the total cost of tickets, which was C, depends on how many tickets are purchased, which is T. An equation representing the relationship between T and C looks like this. The C equals 8 times T, which is what I wrote on the previous page. The total cost equals 8 times the number of tickets purchased. The number of tickets purchased, T, is the independent variable. The cost, total cost, C, is the dependent variable. The total cost depends on the number of tickets purchased. So, you can use the equation to find the total cost of any number of tickets. For example, if you bought 20 tickets, replacing T with 20 and solving for C will show the total cost. So just like we did on the previous page, we take our equation, we plugged in the 20 for T, and that gave us a new total for C. So 20 tickets cost $160. So if we reflect, lunch costs $2.25 per day. An equation showing the relationship between the number of days, D, and the total cost of lunch, C, is C equals $2.25 D. What is the dependent variable? Explain how you know this. Well, just like with up here, our dependent variable is the cost. And why is that? Because our total cost depends on the number of days. Or depends on D. So let's look at relationships between variables. In this problem, it says Lincoln School is selling candles to raise money for a new track. Each candle is $20. The table shows the relationship between the number of candles sold, C, and the money raised, M. Use the table to write an equation and draw a graph to represent this problem. So you can see here you have the number of candles sold, and it has 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it could go on from there. And then on the bottom you have the amount of money raised, which is your M. So if we sold 0 candles, it's $0. If we sell 1 candle, it's 20. 2 would be 40, 3 and 60, and so on. So you can see it goes up by 20 each time on the amount of money raised. So we can show this by modeling it. We can use words and an equation to represent the problem. An equation with 2 variables can represent the relationship between C and M. So we have the cost of each candle, and we have the number of candles, which is C. And we're going to multiply those because it's for each candle. So 20 times C equals our total money raised. Then, once we have that, we can graph it. We can draw and graph to represent this problem. So it says, you can think of C and M as X and Y coordinates and write the ordered pairs to graph the equation. So, when we had 0 candles, we had 0 money. When we had 1, we had 20. When we had 2, we had 40. So you can see our ordered pairs are coming from those. All we have to do is then plot those points on the line, and these points now show the solution to the equation M equals 20C. So let's answer some questions. Number 2 says, which value is the dependent variable? Which is the independent variable? And then explain. So our dependent variable would be the money raised. That's an N, sorry about that. The dependent variable is the money raised because it depends on how many candles were sold, which is the independent variable. Okay, and now that would be your explain. The dependent variable depends on this, the independent variable. So the money raised depends on how many candles were sold. Number 3, look at the graph. How does the point 240 relate to the equation and table? Well, out of 240, the 2 is 2 candles sold. The 40 is the amount of money raised. Okay, this relates to the table because in the table the C is 2 and the M is 40. So they basically are hand in hand, the same thing. Number 4, use the equation to explain how much money Lincoln raised if he sold 9 candles. So we said our equation was the money raised equals 20 times the number of candles, which is C. So I'm going to take and I'm going to plug in C. So it says 9 candles, so we're going to do M equals 20 times 9. 20 times 9 gives us 180. So it would be $180 made. Number 5, what coordinates on the graph would show how much money Lincoln raised if he sold 9 candles? Explain. Well, just like up above, we had 2 was the number of candles, so we're going to go back at this one. 2 was the number of candles sold. So now we're saying 9 candles sold. So that would be the first coordinate in my ordered pair. My second coordinate would then be the total amount of money he raised with that, which is 180. So it would be 9 and 180, because 9 is the number of candles, and 180 is the amount raised. Okay. So the try it question says, explain how the coordinates of a point on a graph relate to the dependent and independent variables on an equation. Well, basically they're the same thing. So the y coordinate is the dependent variable. Its value depends on the independent variable, which is the x coordinate. Okay, so the next question says, it costs $6 to enter a skating rink and $2.50 per hour to rent skates. The equation below represents the total cost C to skate and rent skates for a certain amount of time, which is T. So, as you can see, we have our total cost, which is C, and that equals $2.50 times the number of hours. That would be our $2.50 per hour, plus the $6 entry fee. So, C equals 2.5T plus 6. Now, we can model it. We can use the table to help us understand this problem. So, our T, which is our number of hours, we have our 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have our equation, where we can plug in our hours. So you can see they plugged in the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4. And then C is your total cost, and that's where we solved our equation. So for 1 hour, it would be $8.50. 2 hours would be $11. 3 hours would be $13.50. 4 hours would be $16, and we can continue that on. So then we go to graph it. You can write ordered pairs from the table above. So you see we have our 1 and $8.50. Sorry, back that up. We have our 2 and our $11, our 3 and our $13.50, and our 4 and our 16. We plotted the points, and this graph right here shows all the possible solutions for the equation C equals 2.5T plus 6. So let's answer some questions. Number 7 says, which value is the dependent variable, which is the independent variable, and explain. So once again, our total cost depends, so it's the dependent variable, on our independent variable, which is the number of hours. Cost depends on the hours. Number 8, use the equation to explain the total amount Melissa pays if she skates for 5 hours. So if we go back and look, our equation was C equals 2.5t plus 6. So if I want to skate for 5 hours, I plug the 5 in for my t. So it would be C equals 2.5 times 5 plus 6. And then I work through and solve it. 2.5 times 5 would be 12.5 plus 6. And 12.5 plus 6 is 18.5, which is $18.50. So 9 says, how would you represent t equals 5 on the table? And then what would it look like on the graph? And explain. So on the table, we would just make another row. And we would have 5 goes in the t column, which is the first one. And then in the middle column would be where you plug it in. So that's where we'd plug in our equation that we put up here. And then the $18.50 goes in the C column. Okay, on the graph, we would plot the point. And 18.5, so that our point would basically just continue up on the line it's already going on. Number 10, describe 2 ways to represent the total cost of skating for half an hour. So for this one, we just solve for t equals 0.5, or 1/2. So it would be C equals 12.5 times 0.5 plus 6. Number 11, given any equation with 2 variables, explain how to draw a table and graph. Well, for the table, we write independent variables. So that would be our 1, 2, 3, 4. And then use the equation to get the independent variable. Then create coordinates and plot them on a graph. Now you try it. Use what you just learned to write an equation. So 12 says the lodge rent snowboards for $40 per day plus a $20 flat fee for safety gear. Write an equation to represent the relationship between the total cost, C, and the number of days rented a snowboard, D. So if we have the total cost would have to equal this information up here. Okay, so if we have our total cost is for $40 per day, we don't know how many days it is, so that's where our D comes in. If it's $40 each day or $40 per day, that means we're doing 40 times D. Then it says plus, obviously we're adding, a $20 flat fee. So our equation would be C equals 40D plus 20. So now what I need you to do is to go ahead and get back into Classroom and complete the exit ticket. Once you've completed the exit ticket, I want you to work on the guided practice pages 212 and 213, and then read or work on something quietly after that.